Welcome back to my channel. I am back with another review, so if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel. I appreciate you all, and let's just get right into this review. This is my first review for the Bad Girls Club. I'm rewatching all of the seasons after all these years to see if my opinion has changed. So thank you all so much for watching and for the support, and let's just get right into this review. So Zara was the first girl to enter the Bad Girls house this season, and she was the youngest girl and one of the most immature, but she was definitely fun to watch because she actually got a little bit wild this season, and that seemed to really get under the skin of a lot of the girls in the house this season. But Zara definitely was memorable, and she did say that she came on the show because she wanted to have a good time and get away from the small town that she was living in, and so she definitely made the most of being in California. And Leslie was the second girl to come on the show, and she was one of my favorites this season. She was definitely somebody to pay attention to, and she stood out from a lot of the other girls. Now, she was really tall and pretty, and she said that she was a stripper and that she came on the show because she wanted to get away from stripping. She did not want to be like some of the other strippers in the club, still doing it at 30 years old, and so she came on the show because she wanted to really make a change. And I have to say that she was one of the only girls this season that I felt like she genuinely came on the show to really make a change in her life, and you're able to see that throughout this season. Ripsy is the third girl to enter the Bad Girls house, and look, we're going to remember Ripsy for a very long time because she definitely made her mark very early on this season. She came off very soft-spoken and sweet. She said that she was a rich girl who was very sheltered, and that's the reason why she came on the show, because she wanted to see if she could make it on her own. Now, Carrie ended up arriving shortly after Ripsy. She was the oldest girl in the house, and she came off as very mature and sweet and soft-spoken, but she did tell the girls as soon as she got into the house, because they started talking about how sweet she seemed. She told them that she's not actually as sweet as she seems like she is, because she said that she can be very manipulative and controlling, which we're able to see throughout the season, so make sure you keep that in mind while listening to this video. And Amy was the next girl to arrive at the Bad Girls house, and look, she had a really bad attitude. She was very talkative, and she was kind of mean. I felt like she was kind of doing a little bit too much this season with her attitude. I feel like she felt like she had something to prove, or she felt like she had to be that way on the show. But when her boyfriend talked about the way that she was, he kind of described her as the same way she was on the show, so maybe she was just being herself. Jody ended up showing up shortly after Amy, and look, Amy immediately judged Jody by the way that she looked, because Jody was a really pretty tall blonde. She looked like a model, and she was well put together, and she looked like she really had her shit together. And she did say that she came from a corporate job, and that the reason why she decided to come on this show is because she really needed a break from that. And look, I do not blame Jody at all. If her life seemed really boring, then having a free vacation for a few months is definitely something to do. And I just felt like it was wrong the way that a lot of the girls prejudged her just because of the way that she looked. And last but not least, Ty actually ended up showing up the day after all the other girls, because she was a bad girl for real. Like, she was in and out of trouble in her life, so she had court, so she had to come the very next day. And look, she said that she had been in and out of trouble, and that the reason why she came on the show is because she wanted a break from the life that she was living. And I think that she genuinely came on the show because she wanted to change as well, but she kind of let her past get the better of her throughout the season, and you'll be able to see that as well. But she was really tall and pretty, just like Leslie and Jody. She looked like a model as well, and I really liked her this season. Now, for the most part, they were all really getting along with each other, but the second day that they were in the house, they all decided to go out to the club and enjoy themselves and explore California a little bit, and everybody ended up going except for Ty. And everything started out really well at the club, and Jody and Leslie were dancing, but here's where things take a left turn, because while Jody and Leslie are dancing together, some guy comes up behind Jody and he starts dancing on her really aggressively, and Leslie really does not like it because he's messing up their dance and he's doing a bit too much. And so while Jody didn't say anything to the guy, and listen, even though Jody did not tell this guy to get off of her and she kept dancing, I feel like she was uncomfortable with the way that this guy was dancing on her, but she was probably afraid to tell him to get off because she didn't know his reaction. Because sometimes when you tell a guy no or to leave you alone, his reaction might be really bad. He might not like the rejection and things can get really physical. So I think that's the reason why she just kept dancing and didn't say anything to him. But Leslie, however, ended up saying something to the guy. She told him to go away and leave them alone. They want to dance by themselves. And he got so pissed off that he threatened to have a girl come to the club and fight Leslie. So while Leslie and this guy are having a back and forth, a security guard ends up coming over there and he thinks that Leslie is the aggressor in the situation. And so he ends up very aggressively grabbing her by the arms and tossing her out of the club. And Leslie did not see Jody tell the security guard that he was wrong, but she actually did pull the security guard to the side and told him that Leslie was not the aggressor in the situation and that all she was trying to do was get the guy to leave them alone because he was being too aggressive with the way that he was dancing on them, and that Leslie didn't do anything wrong. But because Leslie did not see Jody say this to the security guard, she ends up going off on Jody when they get in the limo. Leslie was upset that Jody didn't have her back in that situation, and look, Jody definitely did tell the security guard that he was wrong and that Leslie didn't do anything wrong and that she was just trying to get the guy to leave them alone. But she definitely didn't say anything to the guy that was dancing on her, and I think in that situation, she should have had Leslie's back and told this guy to leave them alone too. That way he knew that both of them wanted him to go away instead of just one of them. And so I definitely feel like she could have had Leslie's back in that situation. But Leslie started going in on Jody a little bit, calling her a wannabe playboy bitch, and that really upset Jody. So Jody brought up the fact that Leslie was a stripper, and so they kind of had a little bit of a back and forth in the limo, but it actually ended up ending there. And Leslie's mother gave her some really important advice over the phone. She told Leslie that she doesn't know these girls, to stop getting involved in stuff that doesn't have anything to do with her, because she doesn't know them enough to know that they would have her back in that type of situation. And her mother was absolutely right. And I feel like, Leslie had the right intentions for trying to get this guy away from Jody. However, she put herself in a very dangerous situation because that guy that she told to get away from them could have put his hands on her or did something really crazy. And the security guard grabbed her very aggressively and tossed her out of the club. That situation could have escalated a little bit too far as well. So I feel like she put herself in a very dangerous situation. So although she had the right intentions, I think her mom gave her some good advice to stay out of other people's situations that they have. Now, the next day, Jody is still a little bit upset at the situation between her and Leslie because she didn't think that that was going to happen. And she's opening up to Ripsy about it. And she tells Ripsy that she feels like the other girls are afraid of Leslie because none of them tried to calm the situation down and nobody told Leslie that she was wrong for the way that she was coming at her. So she felt some type of way about the other girls and she opened up to Ripsy about it the next day. And Ripsy ended up going inside the house and Amy's doing her hair and she tells Amy that Jody is still upset about the fight that she had with Leslie. And basically she ended up telling Amy that Jody feels like the other girls are afraid of Leslie. And once Ripsy said that, Amy got so pissed off, like she was going off about it. And the crazy thing to me is that it wasn't really that big of a deal for Amy to go off the way that she did. And I say this because none of the other girls seemed to really care what Jody had to say about that situation because they knew that they were not afraid. I think none of the girls were afraid of Leslie. I just think that they didn't want to get involved in that situation because they really didn't know what was going on either because they wasn't over there where that whole situation took place. So I think they were just minding their business and staying out of it because remember, this is only the second day. Nobody's going to be buddy or trying to defend anybody so quickly when they just met them. So I feel like the other girls just wanted to stay out of it. However, Amy got in her feelings about the whole situation and she ends up confronting Jody about it and she starts going off on Jody, telling her that she doesn't like her. And to be honest with you, Jody was wrong for bringing the other girls into the situation between her and Leslie because they had nothing to do with it. But Amy already had a preconceived notion about Jody the minute she stepped foot in the house because Amy was the only girl that had a lot of things to say about Jody in her confessional as soon as Jody walked in the door. So Amy already didn't like her. She was just waiting for the moment to be able to go off on Jody. Now, later that day, Ripsy and Zara ended up going out because they just wanted to have a really good time without any drama, and the two of them clicked up pretty quickly, so they end up going out for drinks, and during their outing, that's when, Ripsy ended up telling Zara that after she has 3 drinks to cut her off because she ends up blacking out and getting very aggressive, and I guess because Zara really didn't know Ripsy like that, and she feels like Ripsy is just a really sweet girl, she didn't end up cutting her off, and Ripsy ended up getting so drunk that she fell fell asleep in the back of the cab, and Zara basically had to carry her inside of the house. And if you thought that was bad, the very next morning on an empty stomach, Ripsy ended up waking up and pouring herself 2 shots of tequila. She claims that somebody told her that if you want to get over a hangover, you have to drink the same thing that you had the previous day, and that'll take away the hangover, and that's not true. I don't know why people say that. Maybe you think that because you don't feel the headache anymore because you're drunk again, but that is not the way to get over a hangover. And when the other girls, mainly Carrie and Jody, see that Ripsy is drinking again on a very empty stomach, they tell her that she should not do that and that that's not the way to get over a hangover. And Ripsy gets really upset with them for saying that because she feels like they're judging her. And I don't think that they were judging her. Well, maybe they were being a little bit judgy in that situation, but what they were saying was not wrong. But because Ripsy doesn't know them like that, she honestly felt like she was being judged. And the reason why we know that she felt like she was being judged is because after all the other girls ended up going out, Ripsy stays in the house with Leslie and she opens up to her. She really starts crying and she tells Leslie that she feels like Carrie and Jody were judging her for drinking. And I honestly feel like Ripsy should have told Carrie and Jody how she felt instead of holding it in, because at some point she was going to end up exploding. And later on this night, like this particular night after she was drinking in the morning on an empty stomach, her and Zara decide that they're going to drink an entire bottle of tequila to themselves, and they were just having a really good time. And what started out as a really good night ended up ending really badly. Because while Zara and Ripsy were really drunk, they decided that they were going to go outside and do drunk yoga, and the other girls went outside to sit in the chairs and watch them do this drunk yoga, and the other girls were laughing while they were doing it because it was really funny. And at first it started off really lighthearted, everybody was laughing and thought it was funny, but Ripsy ended up hopping up off the floor and she goes over to where Carrie is sitting and she starts tussling with her a little bit. And at first Carrie is laughing because she thinks that Ripsy is playing, but the way that Ripsy is getting a bit aggressive with her, she realizes that Ripsy is actually serious. At this point, Ripsy is tussling with Carrie, and Carrie's trying to tell the other girls to get Ripsy away from her, but they're not really getting Ripsy away from her. And so Ripsy kind of grabs her by the neck with her nails and puts a scratch on Carrie's neck. So Carrie starts pushing Ripsy away from her and she tries to walk away, and Ripsy follows behind her and she starts grabbing at Carrie again. And Carrie gets so upset that she ends up pushing a drunk Ripsy into the pool. Now look, I'm not judging Carrie for pushing Ripsy in the pool despite the fact that she knew that Ripsy was really drunk, because Ripsy keeps attacking her and that's the only way that she felt like she can get away from her. But it probably wasn't the best idea because Ripsy looked like she was about to drown in the pool and Amy had to help her out. Now once Amy helped Ripsy out of the pool, she's laying on the side of the pool coughing up water, and then she hops up off the ground and she runs back in the house, and all the other girls at this point are scattering, running away from Ripsy because they don't know what she's going to do next. And she runs into the house and she goes into the kitchen and she starts throwing around the kitchen chairs. And she goes up to Carrie again and she starts fighting with Carrie. Like she starts hitting Carrie and she starts pulling on Carrie's legs. So Carrie lets her basically take her pants off because she wants to get away from Ripsy. And Carrie is sitting there screaming for the other girls to get Ripsy away from her. And although they're trying, it's Carrie's job to defend herself. And so basically, because of the other girls not helping her, she ended up having to basically fight Ripsy off. So she starts hitting Ripsy in the face and kicking her, and she finally got Ripsy away from her. And that's when Zara ended up grabbing Ripsy and asking her why she keeps attacking Carrie. And she basically said in a drunk voice that she loves Carrie, but clearly she doesn't love Carrie because she's beating the girl up. I feel like the reason why she went after Carrie is because she felt like Carrie was judging her about the whole drinking thing, and because she held it in, once she got drunk, that's when she decided to go off. Zara was actually able to calm Ripsy down for a second, and Ripsy ended up sitting on the couch and falling asleep, but all of a sudden she ended up hopping off the couch and tripping over the vacuum cleaner, and then she goes and starts walking up the stairs. Now look, as she's walking up the stairs, Carrie is walking down the stairs, and Carrie kind of puts her hands up to keep Ripsy away from her, and Ripsy felt like, Carrie was trying to hit her, so she grabs her from behind at the top of the steps and she starts fighting Carrie on the steps, and Carrie starts fighting back, and the other girls are able to pull the two of them apart, and Ripsy starts calling Carrie Little Miss Perfect and talking about her age. So these are things that Ripsy already felt about Carrie. She just waited until she was drunk to say how she really felt about her. So then Ripsy goes and sits down and she falls asleep again. And then she hops up like a zombie and she runs into the room where Jody is sleeping and she snatches Jody up by the hair out of the bed. And the two of them start fighting in the bed. Now, look, Jody was not screaming and crying for anybody to come help her the way that Carrie was. She started hitting Ripsy all up in her face. Like she was definitely defending herself because she was not about to let, Ripsy overpower her. But when Ty ended up coming into the room and breaking up the fight, that's when Jody put her head up and you can see that she has a really deep cut underneath her eye that happened when Ripsy grabbed her by the face with her nails. And as soon as Ty sees this, she ends up snatching up Ripsy out of the bed and she tells Ripsy to get the hell out of her room and that she knows better not to try her. And Ripsy ends up tripping on the floor and then walking out of the room and finally going to bed. Now, I agree with Ty. Ripsy knew who to play with and who not to play with because she definitely did not come for Ty like that, even though Ty snatched her up the way that she did. But I feel like the reason why Ripsy didn't go after any other girls except for Carrie and Jody is because Carrie and Jody were the ones that she felt like were making fun of her, when really they weren't making fun of her. They were just telling her that drinking first thing in the morning is not a good thing to do. Now, the next day, Ripsy did not remember anything, and all the other girls had to tell her what she did. And I was surprised that she was claiming that she's never done this before, like she's never blacked out and attacked anybody. Because in the previous episode, she started telling Zara that she gets aggressive and blacks out when she drinks too much and to cut her off after 3 drinks. So to me, maybe she just didn't want to let them know that she's done this before, or maybe this was the first time she's ever done it. I just didn't think that it was because of what she said to Zara. And she was very apologetic to Carrie, but she wasn't apologetic to Jody, so I guess she really doesn't like Jody more than she dislikes Carrie. But the thing about it is that Jody said that she actually wouldn't have cared if Ripsy stayed in the house. It was Carrie who gave the ultimatum that it's either her or Ripsy that has to go home because she's not going to stay in the house with Ripsy because she doesn't feel safe. All the other girls were completely okay with Ripsy staying in the house because they felt like, she deserved a second chance. And honestly, she was acting really crazy, but I think that she should have been able to stay in the house, and if she fucked up again, then she should have had to go home, or maybe keep it to where she can't drink while she's in the house, because I truly feel like she could have benefited from staying in the house a little bit longer. But unfortunately, she ended up getting sent home because Carrie said that she would not stay in the house with Ripsy being there. And I can understand why Carrie felt the way that she felt, because Ripsy did attack her and she probably feels like she'll do it again. But I just kind of wanted to see a little bit more of Ripsy on the show. So Ripsy officially became the first bad girl to get sent home on the show. And look, she ended up giving away some of her designer clothes and shoes to Amy and Zara before she left the house, which was really generous. I really do feel for her though, because as she was leaving the house, she was crying and she was saying in her confessional that she felt like nothing in life makes her happy. Like she can buy whatever she wants, hang out with her friends whenever she wants to, but that nothing makes her happy and there's a void in her life. Now, I hope by now in 2024 that she's found the happiness that she's been looking for, because she really does deserve it. And I really honestly wish that she could have stayed in the house a little bit longer. But because of her little drunk blackout moment, she is definitely one of the most memorable girls on the show, but she kind of gets left out a lot. Like, I really don't feel like Ripsy gets the recognition she should get, because honestly, I feel like Ripsy versus the house is probably in my top 3 Bad Girls Club moments. Now, once Ripsy leaves, Carrie ends up getting on the phone with her boyfriend and she's crying and she's being very dramatic and acting like a victim. Now, she was a victim in the situation when it came to Ripsy attacking her, because I don't think that anything she did means that she deserved to be attacked by Ripsy the way that she was. But what exactly is her boyfriend going to be able to do? Like, he started comforting her and telling her like, oh, do you want me to come to the house? And she tells him to come fly out there to be with her because she doesn't feel safe. What exactly was her boyfriend going to be able to do to save her if she got into it with one of the other girls in the house? I just felt like it was kind of weak of her that she needed her boyfriend to come out there because she got into a fight with a girl who's no longer even in the house. And Carrie's boyfriend does end up jumping on a plane and showing up at the house, and he was really sweet and nice to all the girls, especially Carrie, because that's his woman, and he showed that he really does love and care about her. And when the other girls were asking if they want to get married, he said that he wanted to get married, but Carrie really didn't want to get married at at the moment. And I think it's okay if she didn't want to get married at the moment, because both people need to be ready before you take that step. However, the way that she ends up all over another guy this season makes me think that the reason why she didn't want to marry this man at the time is because she still wanted to be able to explore other options with other men, which I think is okay, but be single while you explore these other options. Don't just lead somebody on. But you would be surprised to find out that Carrie actually ended up marrying this man that was her boyfriend at the time that she was doing the show, and they now have 2 children together. So I just wanted to give that little update on the 2 of them. Now, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but the way that this episode was edited, it looked like she just had her boyfriend show up for one day, like he flew out for one day and then she sent him packing, because literally he ended up asking her if she was doing okay now that he was there, and she told him that she was doing good now and that she was comfortable and that he can leave if he wanted to. And it made it look like he left the very next day after showing up, which was crazy to me because he flew all the way out there just to be there for 24 hours. Like I said, I don't know if that was accurate, but that's just the way that they made it look. Now, right after Carrie's boyfriend ended up leaving the house, that's when the pool boy Steve ended up showing up, and Carrie was very flirty with this guy. Like, she was flirting with him the whole time that he was there. She was showing him around the house and all that stuff like that, and he took his shirt off and they were watching him and yelling stuff out at him. It was just a really messy situation, and now I can kind of understand why Carrie was telling the girls that she's not as sweet as she comes off to be. And to make matters worse, they actually end up going out to the club later that night to meet up with pool boy Steve, and he ends up bringing his friend Tomic with him, and Tomic ends up taking a liking to Zara, and he is a big douchebag, and we'll talk about that later on in this video. But yeah, Zara ends up hitting it off with Tomic, so she's talking to him the whole night, and Carrie, even though she has a boyfriend, is all over pool boy Steve. Like, they were dancing all over each other, like really, really close, dancing all over each other, and I was dying laughing at Leslie's facial expressions when she saw the way that Carrie and pool boy Steve were dancing, because Carrie made it seem like she was so in love with her boyfriend, but as soon as he left the house, she was all over this other guy, and I don't feel like her boyfriend was doing that. Like, obviously I don't know him, but the way that he was treating Carrie on the show, it seemed like he was all about her and he wasn't about anybody else. So I just didn't think it was right that she was dancing all over pool boy Steve. But at some point, Steve was doing a little bit too much, because when he was on the dance floor with Carrie, he ended up lifting up his shirt and putting it over her head, and she really didn't like that. And then when they were sitting down, he basically tried to kiss her, like without her knowing. He just kind of tried to trick her into kissing him, and she definitely didn't like that, so she walked away from him and didn't want anything to do with him anymore. I think he was doing a bit too much, to be honest with you. And when they ended up going back to the house, she ended up calling her boyfriend up, and I like the fact that she was honest with her boyfriend, okay? She told him, regardless of how he was going to feel about it, that she was dancing all over pool boy Steve and that he made her feel uncomfortable. And obviously her boyfriend was upset about this, and he ended up asking her if she really wants to be with him or not, because if she wants to see other people, then they can end the relationship. But she assured him that she wants to be with him and nobody else, and he took her word for it, and they ended up staying together. Now, Zara, on the other hand, was taking things a little bit too far, because she has a boyfriend as well, just like Carrie does. Her boyfriend is a little bit younger than her. She's 22, I think, at the time, and her boyfriend was 18, which is really young. And so basically, I think that she was taking advantage of the fact that he was younger than her and that she felt like she can get away with anything that she wanted to get away with. And that was pretty clear throughout this season. But she ended up inviting Tomic back to the house, and she does tell him that she has a boyfriend, and he kind of laughs about it. Although I feel like that was part of the reason why he didn't really respect Zara and why he didn't take her seriously, because she was basically essentially cheating on her boyfriend. And so I think that that was part of the reason why he didn't really trust her, because if she'll cheat on her boyfriend, then she'll cheat on him. And that's how I think that he was feeling about it. Although I don't think that he ever really wanted Zara in the first place. I think he just liked the attention that he was getting from her. And apparently Zara really liked Tomic, because she decided that she was going to gather up all the girls and meet up with Tomic and pool boy Steve at the club. And she was rushing these girls. Like, she wanted them to hurry up because she couldn't wait to go meet with Tomic. And so she ended up getting in the limo, and she's yelling for the other girls to hurry up. And Jody, Amy, and Carrie end up getting into the limo, and Zara starts telling the limo driver to go, and they're asking her why she's telling the limo driver to leave, because Ty and Leslie still want to come out with them too. And she lies and tells them that Ty and Leslie said that they can leave without them because they were taking a little bit too long, when really Zara just wanted to hurry up and get to the club. So she purposely left Ty and Leslie behind. So now Ty and Leslie are so pissed off, they end up hopping in the limo and showing up at the club where the other girls are at. And that's when Jody, Kerry, and Amy end up getting into the limo with Ty and Leslie. And Ty and Leslie start questioning them as to why they got left behind. And basically the other girls said that Zara is the one that said that the limo could leave because Ty allegedly told her that it was okay to leave them behind. And so now not only is Ty and Leslie pissed at Zara, but the other girls are pissed at Zara too because she tied them into her lie. And so everybody at this point is fed up with her. And the sad thing about it is the very next day it was Zara's birthday and none of the girls said happy birthday to her or even really said anything to her at all because of the way that she treated them the previous night when she decided to lie and leave people behind just because she wanted to see Tomic. And so I did feel sorry for her that none of the girls acknowledged her birthday, but they were all trying to teach her a lesson that when you do things to people that's hurtful, they're going to be hurtful to you back. And so that's the reason why they didn't acknowledge her birthday. She was so upset that she ended up going to a party at Tomic's house, and she took things a little bit too far because yes, she has a boyfriend, and she decided to go into a room with Tomic and shut the door, and obviously something was going on in there, and she knows that this is going to be on TV, and she still decided to do it anyway. Now here's where we get the first replacement in Bad Girls Club history, and the replacement is Deanne. She was taking the place of Ripsy, who got kicked out of the house for fighting basically everybody when she was drunk. And Deanne seemed to be really cool at first. She seemed to be really friendly and fun. She said that she was a single mother and that before she had her son, she was doing some things that she probably shouldn't have been doing. But once she got pregnant, she decided to change her life around. But she wanted to come on the show to take some time for herself, which I think is okay for a single mother to want to take some time for herself. As long as her son is taken care of at home, I think it's okay for her to do that. However, just keep in mind that her son is going to be mentioned a few times this season. Now, to no surprise at all, Deanne actually got along with everybody except for Amy at first because she felt like Amy had a really bad attitude, which all the girls pretty much think that Amy has a really bad attitude, which she does. She's very negative, but Amy was not too fond of Deanne when she first seen her, and she was basically judging her by appearances because Amy seems to have a really big issue with blondes. Every time there was a blonde girl in the house, she had something negative to say about them, and maybe it's because she just felt like all the blondes were going to click up, which is exactly what ended up happening because Deanne fit in perfectly with Kerry and Jody, and she felt some type of way about that. She definitely talked about Deanne being blonde in her confessional, so Amy and Deanne kind of really didn't like each other, and you're going to see that play out throughout this season. Now, Ty and Leslie had one of my favorite friendships of this season. I felt like they had a very genuine friendship, and they really did like each other, and they cared about each other, and you're able to see that throughout the show. And Ty ends up opening up to Leslie about her toxic relationship back at home with her boyfriend Juan. Now, if you pay attention to this season, you see Ty spending a lot of time on the phone, and most of the time she's either talking with lawyers about her legal issues or she's on the phone with her boyfriend having an argument because she really doesn't trust Juan. She feels like he's cheating on her while she's away because he's done this before. And she did say that she loves Juan, but she said that the only reason why she really stays with him is because she's comfortable and because he helps her out financially. And this is why it's not a good idea for a woman or anybody for that matter to rely solely on somebody financially, because you feel stuck in that toxic situation because you can't get out of it because you can't afford to live on your own. So I definitely felt for Ty, and I think it was good that she was being so open this season. Now, Ty also ended up opening up to Leslie about her interest in women. I think she explored being in relationships with women before, but because she's in a relationship with Juan right now and she needs him financially, I think that that's the reason why she hasn't really explored being with women at that time. She did say that she wanted to be with them, and I like that Leslie did not judge Ty for this whole thing. And the reason why I'm talking about the judging aspect of sexuality at this time is because this was back in 2007 when this show was filmed, and so at that time it wasn't as acceptable as it is now. And I like that none of the girls actually judged Ty for being open about her sexuality. I just felt like at this time she wanted to be with a woman, but because she was so financially reliant on Juan, she couldn't leave him and actually explore that. Everyone ends up going to a party at Tomic's house. Obviously, Zara is the one that wanted everybody to go because she wants to spend as much time with Tomic as possible. She actually ended up breaking up with her boyfriend to be with Tomic at the time, and she didn't seem sad about not having her boyfriend anymore because she was so interested in Tomic. And the other girls had a lot to say about it, some of it to her face and some of it behind her back. So she definitely felt judged about that whole situation. She mainly felt judged by Amy because Amy does not like Tomic at all. She doesn't like his attitude. She thinks that he's full of himself, and she's right about him. He was full of himself and he was really rude and disrespectful. However, Amy didn't seem to mind Tomic when he started flirting with her. She wasn't really flirting back with him, but she didn't really seem to mind the fact that, Tomic was flirting with her. But she did tell Zara that, Tomic was coming on to her, and she tried to warn Zara about him and how he's gonna play her, and Zara really didn't want to hear it because she felt like, Amy was being negative. And I also don't think that Zara believed that Tomic was interested in Amy because she really didn't think that Amy was his type. But I just feel like somebody like Tomic just wanted attention at the time, so I don't think he cared which girl it was. He was gonna flirt with everybody. And he ends up pulling Amy into a room and he tells her how much he doesn't like Zara and how much he likes Amy so much better, and that the only reason why he went after Zara is because she was the first one that he saw. And when Amy tries to tell Zara about this situation, Zara is not believing her at all. And the crazy part about it is that they get into this huge argument about this whole situation after they leave the party at Tomic's house because Zara is not trying to listen to Amy, and now Amy feels insulted because she feels like Zara is trying to call her ugly because she was basically implying that she's not Tomic's type. And Amy was right about Tomic because then she ends up getting on her MySpace page. Yes, this is back when MySpace was a thing, and she ended up going on her MySpace page and seeing that she got a message from Tomic, and Tomic is talking so much shit about Zara in this message, and Amy doesn't end up showing Zara, from what we're able to see, this message that she got from Tomic, but she does end up showing all the other girls. And so basically they're laughing at Zara at this point because they know that she's stupid for chasing after this guy who really doesn't want her and ending things with her boyfriend back at home for this douchebag. And look, I don't blame Amy for not showing this email to Zara because Zara's not going to take it seriously anyway because she wants to be with Tomic at this point. And when Zara ends up confronting Tomic about the things that Amy told her about him, he denied it. He claims that he didn't try to get with Amy at all and she's delusional. And then he ends up telling Zara that he would be interested in dating her exclusively. And Zara is such a fool, but I'm going to give her a pass because she was really young at the time and she was in California just trying to really enjoy her life. And so she agreed to be his girlfriend, but that did not last very long. Now, here's where things get rocky between Leslie and Zara because the two of them got along really well at first and they actually share a room together. But at this point, Leslie, Ty, Amy, and Zara were planning on going to a club, but it was a predominantly black club. And Zara did not want to go to a predominantly black club because she just did not feel comfortable. But the way that she was saying it made Leslie and Ty feel some type of way. And I would have felt some type of way about that too, because why is it okay for Leslie and Ty to have to go to all these predominantly white clubs and you guys can't go to a predominantly black club with them every once in a while when they want to go? And it's not like there's not any white people or people of any other races at a predominantly black club. It's just mostly black people. And Amy was going to be there too. And Zara actually ended up going home while Amy ended up going to the predominantly black club with Leslie and Ty. And she had a really good time. And I actually liked the bond that was starting to form between Leslie, Ty, and Amy. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long. And Leslie and Ty were really upset with Zara to the point where Leslie started making comments whenever Zara would walk by because she felt some type of way about it. And the two of them kind of ended up having a little bit of a back and forth because Zara didn't understand why Leslie was so offended by her not wanting to go to a predominantly black club. But while Leslie was still really upset with Zara about the whole situation, Ty actually ended up letting it go and she was really friendly with Zara and the two of them were playing around a lot. And this seemed to really upset Leslie to the point where she kind of got into it with Ty a little bit. She called Ty fake and Ty was really upset about that because she felt like her and Leslie were building a bond. But the tension between Leslie and Ty did not last long because they ended up having a conversation and Ty explained the reason why she let things go with Zara, and she said that because normally she wouldn't let something like that go, but because she's on the show and she's trying to change, she decided that she was going to let things go with Zara and not keep the drama going because she just wanted to be different than what she usually is like. And I think that, she handled things the right way because she knows that she can make things escalate more than what it needs to be. And that's the reason why she took a different route when it came to Zara. However, I do feel like Leslie had a right to feel the way that she felt about Zara because what Zara said made her feel really uncomfortable, especially because her and Zara were friends and they shared a room together. Zara was so upset at the fact that Leslie was not talking to her that she decided to be a nuisance on purpose to Leslie so that she can get Leslie to actually have a conversation with her. So Leslie does not like to be woken up out of her sleep. She likes to sleep in a lot, and she's also very clean. And Zara decided that she was going to make a lot of noise early in the morning to wake up Leslie, and then she was going to make a mess in the room so that Leslie can get really upset. And Leslie noticed really early on what Zara was trying to do, and she did not give Zara the reaction that she wanted. However, Zara decided that she was going to kick things up a notch, and so Zara ended up getting in the car, and she sees that the car that, Leslie usually drives has a juice bottle in it, and so she put a piece of paper and taped it on the juice bottle and put, practice what you preach, because Leslie is always talking about being clean, and yet she left a bottle in the car. But I feel like Zara was being really petty because honestly, it's just a bottle in the car. She just wanted to try to get Leslie to talk to her, and that's the reason why she left the note on the bottle. So Leslie ends up going to drive the car, and she sees the note on the bottle. So she comes in the house and she starts confronting all the girls, and Deanne gets really upset because she doesn't want to be confronted for something that she did not do. And so she gets really upset at Zara for not owning up immediately to writing the note on the bottle to Leslie. And Zara gets upset because she realizes that a lot of the girls are starting not to like her because they feel like she's really immature. Now, despite the fact that Carrie and Jody were actually really close with each other at the beginning of this season, once Deanne came on the show, that's when things kind of started to simmer down between Jody and Carrie. Like, their friendship wasn't the same way that it was. Carrie started to build more of a bond with Deanne than she did with Jody, and she kind of started leaving Jody out. And to be honest with you, Jody was noticing this really early on, and she felt some type of way about it, and rightfully so, because the hate that Jody ended up getting from a lot of these girls towards the end of this season was unwarranted to me, because I honestly feel like Jody didn't do anything to anybody, especially not Carrie. So I really didn't like the way that Carrie and Deanne started to treat Jody. And here's where things got rocky between Carrie, Jody, and Deanne, because Carrie and Deanne decided that they were going to go out with both Jody and Amy, but Jody and Amy were going to go shopping together. And then Carrie and Deanne said that they were going to go on a Hollywood tour and that they would meet them back in the same place that they decided to split up. And so Jody and Amy are thinking that they're just gonna go shopping and then meet up with the two of them. But when Amy and Jody were finished shopping, they end up trying to meet up with Carrie and Deanne, and they're nowhere to be found with the car. And so Amy gets so upset that she ends up telling Jody that Carrie and Deanne were lying about going on a Hollywood tour and that they were really trying to go to the store to buy a bunch of stuff so that they can prank Jody. So Jody is really upset at this point because she doesn't understand why they lied to her and why they're trying to play pranks on her when she's supposed to be a part of the group. And so she started to feel some type of way about it. Now look, it was funny that Amy actually ended up going against what she said to Carrie and Deanne, which was that she wasn't going to tell Jody that they were planning on pranking her, and that's the reason why they were late. But she ended up telling Jody anyway, and so I feel like Amy was trying to be messy. I think she was trying to break up the group of blondes that were together because, like I said before earlier in this video, Amy seemed to have an issue with all the blondes clicking up together. So Jody starts questioning Carrie and Deanne when they get back to the house about how the Hollywood tour was, and Deanne tried to lie and say that the Hollywood tour was great, but then Jody seemed like she wasn't believing what Deanne was saying. So now Deanne has caught on that Amy told Jody what was really going on, and so now Deanne knows that, Amy can't be trusted. So all the blondes in the house decide that they're going to go on a camping trip overnight, and before they end up leaving to go on the camping trip, they decide to play a prank on Amy since she wanted to go run her mouth and tell Jody what they were trying to do. So Carrie and Deanne end up putting a fake plastic mouse underneath Amy's bed because Amy is deathly afraid of mice. And so they put it underneath Amy's bed and they leave to go on the camping trip. And Amy freaks the hell out when she sees this tail hanging from underneath her bed, and she goes off. She starts flipping out to where Leslie and Ty end up coming into the room to see what's going on with Amy. And then Amy realizes that it's actually a plastic rat, and she gets so upset that she goes into Carrie and Deanne's room, starts pulling out all their clothes, throwing it on their beds, and then she takes takes this bleach spray and she starts spraying it all over their clothes, which to me, she went too far. It was just a plastic mouse underneath the bed. Do I think they should have done it? No, because I'm afraid of mice too. But I would not go as far as to spray bleach on somebody's clothes just because they put a fake rat somewhere. Like, to me, Amy definitely took things too far. Now, here's where Carrie and Deanne definitely start talking bad about Jody behind her back, because when they end up going on this very short camping trip, and the reason why I'm saying it was short is because they ended up having to leave the same night that they got there because they broke the rules at the camping site, so they ended up having to leave. But before they ended up getting kicked out, they were trying to put together a tent, and there was this guy that ended up coming up to them and telling them that they were putting the tent together wrong, and basically he was kind of trying to help them a little bit, and he started hanging around a little bit longer than the girls wanted him to, but Jody was spending a lot of time with them, and so Carrie and Deanne were talking bad about Jody behind her back, saying that she acts like she always needs a man around. And I don't understand why they said that about Jody, because I feel like Carrie acts like she always needs a man around. She was the one who called her boyfriend up crying because she got into a fight with Ripsy, who was no longer in the house anymore, and had her boyfriend come to the house because she needed to feel protected. And then she was all over pool boy Steve. So I don't understand why, Carrie is saying this about Jody, especially because she's supposed to be Jody's friend. And then Deanne doesn't even know what she's talking about, because Carrie to me seemed like the more boy crazy type of person than Jody was. Jody was single. If she wanted to talk to men, she can talk to them if she wants to. Carrie was in a committed relationship, so her talking to guys behind her boyfriend's back was wrong. Now, remember when I said that I liked the friendship that was forming between Leslie, Ty, and Amy? Well, here's where things fall apart, because Leslie and Ty decide that they're going to go out to the club together and have a really good time, and Ty ends up drinking too much and she gets really, really drunk and she starts throwing up all over the place. And so Leslie decides that it's time to bring Ty home, and when she brings Ty home, Ty is throwing up really loudly in the bathroom. Like, she is crying and throwing up so loud that it wakes up the other girls in the house. But none of the girls really complained about getting woken up by Leslie and Ty, except for Amy. She hopped out of her bed and she starts complaining about the fact that she got woken up and how she needs to get up early, and how Leslie would be upset too if somebody woke her out of her sleep. And so I understand why Amy was upset, because I would be annoyed too if I got woken up out of my sleep. However, you live in a house with 6 other girls, so you're going to be expecting to get woken up sometimes, because sometimes girls are going to go out or they're going to stay up a little longer than you are. And I don't understand what Amy was talking about when she said that she had to get up early the next morning. Amy really doesn't do anything but complain and sit at the computer, so I don't really know what she had to do. I just felt like she could have been a little bit more sympathetic to what was going on with Ty. And so the next day, Ty ends up finding out that Amy had a lot of shit to say about her getting drunk and throwing up. And so Ty is really upset at this point, and she's really trying to hold back, because like she said, normally she would have flipped out on Amy right then and there, but she said that she really is trying to change and she wants to get away from her old ways. So she really was trying to hold back. However, all the girls minus Zara and Jody end up going to the beach to enjoy themselves, and there was definitely still some tension between Ty and Amy at the beach. And when it was time to leave the beach, all the girls were carrying something so that they can get it to the car easier so they can get out of there. And Ty told Amy if she can carry one of the rafts, and Amy said no, and this really upset Ty. And look, it wasn't really that big of a deal that Amy said no, that she didn't want to carry the raft. However, the reason why Ty got so upset about Amy telling her no is because she was already upset with Amy for the whole situation about her getting upset because she came home drunk and woke her up out of her sleep. And so Ty was so upset about that she made the raft situation a bigger deal than what it needed to be. So Ty and Amy are having a back and forth, a really heated back and forth on the way walking back to the car, and the other girls are watching this go down, and Leslie is trying to calm Ty down because she does not want Ty to make it escalate into something bigger than it needs to be, because she doesn't want Ty to end up fighting Amy and having to go home. Like, that is her ace in the hole, that is her friend in the house, that's who she feels comfortable with, and she really does not want Ty to leave. However, Ty did say that she was having a hard time holding back her anger, and so she ended up getting into a fight with Amy at this point. She starts swinging on Amy, like she is fighting Amy, and it was a short fight. I mean, she swung on Amy a couple of times and she connected each time that she swung on Amy, and Amy had a nosebleed, and I think her lip was cut a little bit. And look, that's what Amy gets because she has a really big mouth. Like, I don't think that what happened at the beach was a big enough deal for the two of them to get into a fight. However, Amy has ran her mouth so much this season, making it seem like she's this tough girl. She was threatening to punch people in their mouth and fight people all season, and she hasn't done anything. She's all bark, no bite. Because then when it came time for her to show and prove what she can do, she wasn't able to really do anything, and she got beat up by Ty. But Leslie was so upset. I mean, she stormed off crying, telling Ty that she told her to come on and not fight Amy, and now she has to go home. And Ty is hugging Leslie, trying to calm her down. And I got so sad watching this all over again, seeing how upset Leslie was that Ty had to leave. It wasn't only because Ty and Leslie were really close and she wanted Ty to be in the house with her so she wouldn't be lonely, but it was because she knew that Ty needed to be in the house. Like, out of all the other girls in the house, Ty was one of the girls that really needed to be there, and she wasn't going to be able to stay. She had to go home. Leslie was so upset when Ty had to go home that she basically said that she was going to shut down a little bit, not really be as open with the other girls, and kind of stay more to herself. She really did say that she wanted to go home, but all the other girls really wanted her to stay, and she decided that she was going to stay in the house so that she can really work on herself. And she decided that she was going to go back to school so that she can get out of stripping, because she really wanted to make the most of the time that she had left in the house. And because Leslie was trying to focus on really making a difference in her life, Carrie decided that it was time for her to really take her country music career seriously. And so she ended up setting up a meeting with country songwriter Bobby Tomberlin, and she ended up bringing both Deanne and Jody with her. But she quickly realized that bringing Jody was probably a mistake, because when she went into the meeting with Bobby Tomberlin, he kind of took a liking to Jody. Now, he wasn't trying to make music with Jody because he knew that Jody was not a musician. She cannot sing, and she admitted that she cannot sing. But Bobby definitely took a liking to Jody. He was definitely physically attracted to her, and that was really obvious. And for some reason, Carrie was upset about that. Now, I understand partially why Carrie would be upset by Bobby Tomberlin taking a liking to Jody, because it was supposed to be all about her, not about Jody. However, he didn't start flirting with Jody until after he wrote the song with Carrie, so I don't really know why she was so upset about it. And Jody can't help if Bobby Tomberlin finds her attractive and he's being flirty with her. What is she supposed to do? Be rude to this guy who's supposed to be working with Carrie? She can't be rude to the man, so what is she really supposed to do? So I just felt like Carrie was kind of in competition with Jody. And here's where my opinion differs from the way that it was a long time ago when I first watched this season, because at first I thought that Deanne was really sweet and fun and I actually liked her. But after rewatching this season as an adult now, I realized that Deanne was very problematic. She was kind of like, you know, Carrie's little puppet, and she basically co-signed everything that Carrie said and did. If Carrie felt some type of way about somebody, she felt some type of way about them too. And if Carrie said something bad about Jody, she basically co-signed it, and that's exactly what she did in this situation. Bobby Tomberlin actually ends up calling Jody on the phone and telling her that he wrote a song about her, and he starts singing the song to her. Now, she didn't ask this man to write her a song. She didn't ask him to call her up. He had the phone number to the house because he was supposed to be talking to Carrie, and he called Jody up and wrote her a song. And obviously Jody was really happy about the song that he wrote for her, so she starts talking about it in the house, and you can tell that Carrie was really upset about it. Now, later on this season, Carrie actually admits that her and Jody had a conversation about the Bobby Tomberlin situation, and they agreed that nothing was going to happen with that situation with him. So I don't understand why Carrie was still holding on to it after the two of them had a conversation about it. Now, here's when things between Zara and Tomek end up coming to an end, because they all end up going to hang out at a club, and Tomek is there, and this time he's making a pass at Deanne instead of Amy, and Zara sees him doing it, and so she pulls him aside and she confronts him about it, and he basically tells her that he doesn't want to be with her, that he doesn't like her, and he starts telling her all these bad things that he thinks about her, and he tells her that he doesn't want to be with her anymore. So she storms off, and she's really upset about it, because look, she lost her relationship, her real life relationship, over Tomek, who was a douchebag and didn't want her to begin with. But honestly, I didn't feel that much sympathy for Zara, because the way that she treated the other girls because she wanted to be with Tomek, and also that she wasn't listening to the other girls when they were telling her that he's not a good person, and she decided to go with him anyway. But Deanne wasn't interested in Tomek anyway. She actually ended up taking a liking to Pool Boy Steve. Pool Boy Steve is really getting around, because first he was all in Carrie's face, now he's all over Deanne. And look, Deanne and Pool Boy Steve end up getting so drunk that they end up going to get matching tattoos of the word drunk in Chinese on their necks, which obviously the next day Deanne actually ended up regretting getting the tattoo on her neck while she was drunk. That's why you don't ever get too drunk and go to a tattoo or a piercing place, because you might leave with with something that you don't really want. Carrie was definitely talking about Deanne in her confessional, though, about the relationship that she has with Pool Boy Steve, because obviously Carrie and Pool Boy Steve has something going on for a little bit, a very short period of time. I just feel like Carrie doesn't like when attention is not on her and when her friends are the ones that are getting the attention. I don't think that she wants any other man other than the man that she was with at the time, but she just really wanted attention from other men, and she didn't like it when her friends were the ones that were getting it. And Deanne ends up inviting Steve and Tomek to the house, and obviously Zara was really upset about this because she doesn't want to be around Tomek anymore, because basically he broke her heart and made her look like an idiot on national television. But Deanne claims that the reason why she invited Tomek to the house is because she thought that Zara would be happy to see him because they always fight and get back together again. I think Deanne just wanted to see Pool Boy Steve, and that's the reason why she invited both of them to the house, because one wasn't going to come without the other. And while at the house, Tomek actually ended up proving just how much of a douchebag he actually is, because he started talking about, Zara's intimate areas and how she has pubic hair and making the sounds that she was making when they were in the room together with the door shut. I just felt like he was doing too much and he was being really disrespectful, and I feel like the other girls should have asked him to leave when he was doing that, because whether they feel some type of way about Zara or not, she is their roommate, and if a guy is in the house being disrespectful and talking about her in a personal type of way, I really don't feel like he should be welcomed in the house. But Zara does not like to be single, and she doesn't like to be lonely, and so she ended up calling up her boyfriend on the phone drunk, and she tells him that the situation with Tomek meant nothing to her and that she wants to be with him and she loves him so much. And basically he ends up taking her back. Now, I personally don't think that he should have taken her back, because she was just playing games with him, and had Tomek really would have stayed with her the entire time she was on the show, I don't know if she would have went back to her boyfriend or not. So I just feel like he should have said no, but because he was so young and in love with Zara, he decided to get back together with her again. So here's where things take a left turn between Zara and Amy, because Zara ends up going somewhere with Carrie and Deanne, and Carrie and Deanne mention Amy's name, and they're kind of talking about her being negative all the time. And that's when Zara decides that she's going to tell Carrie what Amy said about her, because basically Amy said that she can sing better than Carrie, and so she went back and told that to Carrie, and now Carrie is extremely upset with Amy, which I can understand why she would be upset about that, because I don't know why Amy said something about Carrie singing in the first place. I feel like Carrie can sing, so I don't know why Amy said that. However, I don't think it was a good idea for Zara to go back and tell Carrie that information, because Carrie ends up going home and she gets on the phone and she's crying to her boyfriend, telling him that she doesn't understand why Amy was talking about her. And look, I know why she was upset about that whole situation. She's very sensitive when it comes to her singing, but she talks bad about people all the time too this season, and yet whenever somebody says something about her, she gets on the phone with her boyfriend and she starts crying about it like she's an innocent victim, and she's not. And even though Carrie told Zara that she wasn't going to confront Amy about what she found out, she ends up doing it anyway, and Amy basically says that Zara is lying and that she never said that Carrie couldn't sing. And I think that Amy's lying. Like, I definitely feel like Amy said something about the way that Carrie sings, and now that she's being confronted, she wants to make it seem like Zara's the one that's the problem, and Carrie is eating up everything that Amy is saying, and basically Zara ends up looking like the bad guy in the situation, and that's why she shouldn't have said anything to Carrie. And at this point, Amy and Zara end up going tit for tat. Like, they start telling on each other. Basically, Amy ends up going to Deanne and telling her that Zara said that if she had a child back at home, she wouldn't have came on the show. Basically saying that Deanne is wrong for leaving her son at home and coming on this show. So obviously Deanne was really upset about that. And then Zara ends up telling Carrie that even though Amy told her that all she did was throw her and Deanne's clothes all over the room, she actually sprayed their clothes with bleach, and obviously Carrie was really upset about that. So now basically Zara and Amy look like the bad guys in the situation. Like, neither one of them looked better than the other in that situation. Now, because Leslie felt really lonely in the house ever since Ty left, she really doesn't want to be there. Like, you can really tell that she didn't want to be in the house anymore, but she decided to try to stick it out because her mother told her over the phone that she should stay and stick it out. And so because she said that she doesn't want to strip anymore, because when she's 30 she doesn't want to still be in the club, she decided that she was going to start taking classes, and that's exactly what she ended up doing. However, she had to be up early the next day to take a really important placement test, and so she couldn't be late for it at all. But when she was trying to sleep, the other girls came home drunk, and Zara was throwing up sick in the bathroom, and Leslie went in there to help her out because Zara did not want to be alone. So Leslie stayed up later than she should have, and she ended up waking up really late in the morning. Like, she woke up too late, like she slept through her alarm. And then when she got on the phone with the people and told them that she was on her way to go take the test, they told her that it was too late for her to do it. And so she got so upset about that she decided to call a house meeting, and she told the girls that she was going home and that there was nothing that they can say to make her stay in the house. And I wanted Leslie to stay. Like, I liked her and I wanted to see her really thrive this season, and I think she did. Like, I think out of all the girls in the house, she was the one that really wanted to change, and she was actually putting in the work to do it. And she ended up telling the girls before she left the house that she feels like none of them are doing anything to really try to change themselves and get their lives to be in a better place. And I think a lot of the girls took that seriously, because once Leslie did leave, they all kind of started to do certain things to make their lives better. Like, Zara started working on things with her boyfriend. He actually ended up coming to visit, and the two of them were able to really work things out. And, you know, Carrie ended up jumping full force into her music career, meeting with managers and all that stuff like that. So I think they took what Leslie said to heart. I was sad to see Leslie go because I really did like her. She was definitely one of my favorites this season. And after Leslie left, everybody was really upset about it, and they decided that they were going to have a clean slate with each other, and everybody was going to try to get along with one another. And so they ended up going out to a winery to have a really good time. And while they were away at the winery, two new girls ended up coming in to take Leslie and Ty's place, and it was JoJo and Andrea. And look, they seemed really cool when they came into the house. We know who JoJo is because she actually ended up winning Ray J's show a few years later. But yeah, she ended up coming into the house with Andrea. Andrea seemed like the more sweet, soft-spoken one, and JoJo was like the loud, you know, fun type of girl. And, you know, they came into the house and they started looking around. They started snooping into other girls' stuff. Like, they were looking through the other girls' things, which was really disrespectful to me. Like, why are you going through their stuff? And then they ended up going in the refrigerator and drinking the wine that one of the girls had in there. And so when the other girls come back, they see all this luggage and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And they get really upset when they see the two new girls there drinking their wine. Now, I truly don't understand the point of getting upset when there's replacements in the house. Like, I think that that was dumb. I always thought that that was dumb on the Bad Girls Club, that the other girls got so upset about replacements, because you know a replacement is coming. I didn't really understand Deanne being upset with the replacements because she was a replacement as well. Yeah, she came early on because Ripsy got kicked out of the house on the 4th day, but I still feel like she should have been a little bit more receptive to the new girls just because she knows what it feels like. Zara was actually the only one that was nice to the new girls, so they really took a liking to her, but that didn't really last long because whenever Zara got with the other girls, she would talk bad about the new girls. Now, Jody was one of the girls that took what Leslie said very seriously because she said that she wasn't really doing anything to better her life either, and so she tried to jump full force into modeling, and she ended up booking a fashion show. But the other girls were not really happy for Jody in her fashion show. They were basically talking about her weight all the time and how much she gained, and I just thought that that wasn't right because obviously Jody was eating a little bit more because she was in a stressful situation. She was in a new environment full of girls that she doesn't really know. Her friendship with Carrie and Deanne kind of went out the window, and so that's the reason why she was eating a little bit more than she should have been. But I just don't think it was right the way that they were talking about her. Like, I just felt like it was really messed up because if Carrie and Deanne were supposed to be friends with Jody, why talk about her like that? All the girls were talking about her, mainly Amy. She had a lot to say about Jody's weight, and I just feel like it was messed up. Like, yeah, models are known to be really skinny and they're able to fit in all types of sample sizes, but I just didn't think it was right the way that they were treating Jody. They just could have went to the fashion show and cheered her on and that was it. But instead, they just had a lot of negative things to say, and I didn't think that it was fair. Now, here's where the new girls actually don't end up liking Zara anymore, even though she was the only one that was friendly to the two of them, because Zara and Amy end up going out to the club with JoJo and Andrea, and Andrea gets really drunk, and JoJo decides that it's time for her to take Andrea home. So JoJo ends up going up to Amy and telling her that she's gonna take Andrea home, and Amy asked her if she can bring the limo back to the club to pick up her and Zara, and you know, JoJo said yes. So JoJo and Andrea get into the limo, and all of a sudden when the limo is about to leave, Zara ends up coming outside and hopping in the limo to leave. And that's when JoJo and Andrea are asking her where Amy is. And basically, Zara was saying that Amy didn't want to leave the club, even though that was not true. Zara just never went up to Amy and told her that she was leaving, so Amy is left at the club by herself. Now, they do end up sending the limo back to the club to pick up Amy, but Amy comes back to the house really upset with Zara, JoJo, and Andrea. And, that's when Zara ends up telling Amy that JoJo and Andrea were the ones that left her behind. And so the other girls obviously are going to get upset about this because it's really not true. Zara does a lot of stupid shit when she's drunk. She's definitely entertaining to watch, but she definitely does a lot of stupid stuff. And that's the reason why a lot of the girls really don't like her. And the new girls ended up not really liking her anymore either. But here's where I also really didn't like Carrie and Deanne that much, is because they ended up staying home while the other girls went to the club, and they stayed home with Zara, and they were playing around a lot and really messing up the house. They ended up ripping open pillows, and there were feathers everywhere. And then they took out peanut butter and they started throwing peanut butter around. Now, all three of them were throwing the peanut butter and the feathers all over the place. And when the other girls came back to the house, they were really upset about the feathers and peanut butter. And I would be upset too, because why are you messing like this? Like, at some point, you're gonna have to clean it up. Like, we're all gonna have to live in this house, and you guys really dirtied it up the way that they did. Because I felt like the BGC one house was one of the cleanest houses on the show for the entire 16, 17 seasons of the show. This was one of the cleanest houses. They really kept it together, but these girls really messed it up at the very end. And Carrie and Deanne made it seem like it was all because of Zara. Like, they blamed the whole thing on Zara and then made Zara clean the whole thing up by herself. And when she asked them for help, they sat there and made excuses not to help her. And I really thought that that was disgusting, because although Zara can be really problematic, Deanne and Carrie are very problematic as well. And the fact that they sat there and had that girl clean up all that mess by herself, I just thought that that was not right. But here's where the girls, a lot of them ended up getting really worried about Zara, because they all ended up going to the club one night, and at this club, Amy ended up making out with, Tomic on the dance floor. I don't understand why Amy judged a lot of the other girls from making out and dancing with other guys while they had boyfriends, when she just did the same thing, even though she came on the show with a boyfriend too. But that's besides the point. All the girls ended up getting into the limo, and there was a phone, I guess, that they're able to take with them to the club so that they can make phone calls. And Andrea was holding the phone in her hand because she was waiting for a phone call from a guy at the club. And Zara seen that she was holding the phone, and she asked her if she could use it to make a phone call really quick. And Andrea told her no, and all the girls in the car were laughing at Zara. And Zara was really upset about this. She started having a little bit of a back and forth with Andrea, which I don't understand why Andrea did not just let, Zara use the phone really quick. I mean, getting a phone call from a random guy at the club is not that big of a deal, right? I don't even think that guy ever ended up calling. However, Zara is so annoying, and she does a lot of stuff to people that they don't like, so that's the reason why they treat her the way that they treat her. But she gets so upset about being laughed at that she goes back to the house and she starts taking a bunch of shots of alcohol, and then she goes into the bathroom, shuts the door. You can hear a glass break. She comes out of the bathroom crying. She goes and sits outside. Deanne comes outside to talk to her, and Deanne notices that Zara has 2 cuts on her wrist from when she went into the bathroom. So basically, she broke glass and cut herself with the glass. So at this point, Jody, Deanne, and Carrie are outside trying to console Zara, and Zara really doesn't want to be touched. She doesn't want to be talked to. Zara's saying that she needs to go home because she did that to herself, and they were really concerned about Zara, and I feel like they should have been concerned. But Amy was in the house with JoJo and Andrea, and she was saying that she didn't believe that, Zara really wanted to hurt herself, and if Zara really wants to hurt herself, she'll show her how to do it. And I just felt like Amy was being really unsympathetic. I just feel like that's kind of harsh. You don't know what somebody might be going through on a daily basis. You don't know what they might be going through in their regular life that they're dealing with. She doesn't know Zara from a can of paint, only from being in this house. So she doesn't know if this is something that Zara has done before, but Amy feels like Zara did it for attention. Now, to me, whether Zara did it for attention or not is something that people should be concerned about. And so I just felt like Amy was doing too much in that situation. And Andrea was kind of co-signing what Amy was saying. But then the next day, she ended up going up to, Zara herself and asking her if she was okay, because I think that she genuinely cared, and she was afraid that she had something to do with the fact that Zara did that to herself. So I just felt like Amy was wrong for that. Show some type of sympathy. Now, I don't know why this happened, but Amy ended up sitting down and having a conversation with Jody, and she tells Jody that she feels like Carrie has been competing with her, and that Carrie has been talking bad about Jody behind her back. And obviously, Jody is really upset about this because she has a really strong friendship, or so she thinks, with Carrie. And so she didn't think that Carrie would be talking about her behind her back. But according to Amy, that's what Carrie does all the time. And Amy was not lying. Carrie has definitely been in a silent competition with Jody the entire season so far. I don't know how Jody didn't see it, but I just felt like Amy was being messy by telling Jody this information. Now, Amy did not want Jody to go and confront, Carrie about what she said because she didn't want to be involved in it. But, obviously Jody has a friendship with Carrie, and so she wants to hear what Carrie has to say about it. So Jody ends up asking Carrie about it, and Carrie says that Amy is lying and that she never said anything bad about her, and anything she had to say, she said it to her face, which Carrie was obviously lying about that. She has talked bad about Jody a lot, especially with Deanne, so I just don't understand why she lied about it. She could have just been upfront and honest with Jody about that. But Jody ended up asking Carrie not to go back to Amy and tell her about the conversation they just had. And even though Carrie promised Jody that she wouldn't do it, she ended up going back to Amy and telling Amy that Jody told her that she said that she was competing with her and that she's been talking behind her back. And obviously Amy lied. Amy lied and said that she never said this to Jody, and she doesn't understand why Jody is lying. And for some reason, Carrie believed Amy over Jody. Now, Deanne has been spending a lot of time with pool boy Steve, and they end up getting really close at the club, and he comes back to the house and they're all over each other. I don't think they slept together. I think all they did was just kiss, but they were definitely building some type of connection, and they ended up going on the date. However, one night when all the girls ended up going to the club, pool boy Steve was there, and he actually ignored that Deanne was even there. He wouldn't even look in her direction. He didn't come up to her and say anything to her, and he was all over another girl, basically trying to make sure that Deanne saw him all over this other girl. And Deanne was obviously really upset about it, but Amy told Deanne not to show him that she's upset and to not even look in his direction because that's what he wants. And they actually ended up pushing Deanne to talk to another guy at the club. And obviously pool boy Steve saw this, and I don't think he was happy about it because shortly after that he ended up leaving, but he left the club with another girl. So Deanne was really upset about this. She ended up taking a drive by herself, and she was crying in the car. I don't think she wanted any of the other girls to see her because I think she was embarrassed that she was actually upset over pool boy Steve. But the girls ended up all going shopping together, I think on Hollywood Boulevard or something. They were somewhere in California, a popular spot. And all of a sudden there was these guys holding these signs with apologies on it, and they were from pool boy Steve to Deanne. And then he ends up showing up and giving her a big public apology in front of everybody, and for some reason she ended up accepting his apology. I don't think it's wrong for her to accept his apology because honestly they weren't in a relationship anyway, so he can see who he wants. However, I don't think that she should have kissed him and hugged him or anything like that because he already showed her the type of guy that he is, and he did all that for no reason anyway. So I just don't feel like she should have, been extra friendly with him after he did what he did at the club the previous night. Now, here's where you get to see what Carrie meant at the very beginning of this season when she said that she can be manipulative sometimes and controlling, because she actually ended up proving it with this whole situation with Jody. Now, Jody ended up bonding with JoJo a lot because JoJo was actually one of the only girls that understood that she wasn't the one that was problematic, and that it was actually Carrie that was the one that was the problem, and that she's very manipulative. And JoJo was not a follower. She was going to be friends with Jody whether the other girls liked her or not, and I think that that's great. However, all the other girls flocked to Carrie, and they all took Carrie's side. And I feel like Amy is just as manipulative as Carrie in this situation because both of them tried to make Jody look like she was the one that was the problem. Like Jody was the one causing issues between Carrie and Amy, even though that's not true. They had issues with each other and Jody had nothing to do with it. But for some reason, they wanted to make Jody the bad guy. So Amy starts running around saying that Jody is the one that's starting all the trouble in the house. And obviously all the girls except for JoJo and maybe Zara, because Zara didn't really care about what was going on in the situation, took Carrie's side and didn't take Jody's side. And Jody made a really big mistake when she decided to open up to Deanne, of all people, about how she feels about Carrie. Now, she didn't say anything bad about Carrie during this conversation with Deanne. She just said that she never said anything bad to Carrie and that nobody in the house can say that she ever talked about Carrie behind her back. And she's upset to find out that Carrie was actually talking about her the entire time. So Deanne, obviously being loyal to Carrie, ends up going back to Carrie and telling her what Jody was saying. Now, she made it seem like Jody was saying some bad stuff about her, but she wasn't. I don't know why Deanne did that, but she did it anyway. And so Carrie gets so upset and she starts talking to all the other girls in the house about it. And Jody can hear Carrie talking about it. So the two of them end up getting into a really heated back and forth. And that's when both Amy and Carrie end up going at Jody, making it seem like she's the one that's causing issues in the house and that she's the reason why the two of them have issues with each other because she keeps on talking about them to each one of them. And that's not even true, but that's what they decided to manipulate everybody into believing, and everybody believed it except for JoJo. So at this point, Jody is at a loss for words because she just does not understand what's going on, and she doesn't understand how she's the one being made to seem like she's the problem when really it's Amy and Carrie that are the problem, and they're just being really manipulative. And I'm glad that JoJo was one of the only people to at least see that Jody wasn't the problem in the situation. But all the other girls ended up going out to the club except for JoJo and Jody, because JoJo really didn't want to hang out with the other girls after the way that they did Jody. But Jody ended up going up to JoJo when all the girls left and told her that she was leaving. And obviously JoJo was really upset about Jody leaving, but she completely understood why Jody wanted to leave, and so she helped Jody pack. And Jody was excited to leave because she said that she should have left sooner, but she ends up leaving, and she tells JoJo not to tell the other girls where she went, and JoJo actually agreed, and I'm glad that she agreed, and she said that she was gonna fake like she was sleeping the entire time. So JoJo goes to bed. The other girls come home and they see that Jody is gone. They see all her things gone and everything. So they all go in the room and wake up JoJo and ask her where Jody is at, and JoJo tells them that she doesn't know where Jody's at because she's been sleeping the whole time, and she gets in her confessional and says that she doesn't understand why the other girls care where Jody is, because they didn't care about her when she was actually in the house. And I completely agree. Like, why did you want her to stay in the house so you guys can keep taunting her and making her seem like she's the problem? Like, why do they care where she's at? So I'm glad that JoJo kept her promise that she wasn't going to tell where Jody went. So here's the end of everything. Jody ended up leaving, and the girls decided that they were going to do a charity event so that they can raise money to help troubled teens. And Amy was very negative about it. She really didn't want to help and acted like she really didn't care about the situation. That's not surprising at all. And the other girls were really annoyed at her because she was acting like she did not care. Zara ended up helping them raise money, but she also ended up cheating on her boyfriend once again in the bathroom at the very end of the season. That is not surprising at all either. Now, they didn't end up doing a reunion for this season. What they did was they had the girls that had issues with each other on the show meet with a therapist together, which I really liked that they did that. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the reunion better, but I definitely liked that this season they really focused on the girls really changing and working on their mental health. So that's the way that things went at the end of season 1. Now look, when I first watched this season a long time ago, I actually thought it was lackluster compared to all the other seasons. However, now that I'm an adult and I'm more mature now in my mindset, this is actually one of the better seasons of the show because I just felt like it was the more authentic season of the show. The girls weren't trying so hard to prove that they were a bad girl. There wasn't a head bitch in charge. There was no jumping. There was none of that. And I actually really enjoyed watching it this time around. So let me know what you guys thought about season 1 of the Bad Girls Club down in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos and hit the notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel. I appreciate you all. And until next time, I will talk to you guys in my next video.